So for today, we're going to be developing a simple calculator. And we are going to start by putting in the HTML definition of how our calculator will look like. So because we are not going to be styling anything, I'm going to use table to lay out this nicely. So our first row, I want to put in the input, which will be read-only. And we're going to call it with an ID, access it with an ID, our output here. So if we load this, we have that nicely there. All right. So the next row, I want to put in our buttons and the numbers, right? Okay, load this, see it there, which is fine. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So we have 1, 2, 3, we have 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9, and if I recall, 0 is always the middle, and we have the CE, and here we'll have the equal to. So we'll have something like this. So let's give it a little bit of style to look a little nice. Because right now they are all tightened up. Okay, so we have the table, which we want the width to be 100%. We have that. We want our input to be width 100%. So you'll see that. Yes. And we have a div that is holding everything. We want this div to have padding, just to keep our calculator a little bit inside. So let's give it 50 pixels around. Okay, so that looks nice. And we want our buttons to get bigger a little bit. We have 3 buttons there, so we'll give it 30% and the width and height always around. Let's start with 100 pixels and we'll see what it looks like. Okay. So now what we want, so let's make it 100, 100. Okay. And that's close to what we need. close to what we need. So if we make it a little bit bigger on the weight side, and there, it's almost there. Okay, so we want to make this input a little bit cleaner so that it's more visible. So we make it 50 pixels and see it's looking nicer. Okay, we missed the operators, yeah. So let's add that. So we need a plus. We need a plus, and we need a minus. We need times, and we also need divide. So let's have it here. Okay, so if we reload this, and we have an extra layer there. So let's make changes to our style a little bit. So we reduce this one to 150, maybe a little bit smaller. Yeah, this is okay. I think I just want it to align nicely a little bit. If we can't get it to align correctly, this is not the purpose for this class. Yeah, we have minus, times, divide, and plus, and this is our equal sign. So let's change this one to the back button, and have our equal to at the bottom. So let's do that. So we can use that also to learn one or two. Back button here. Let's use this symbol. This is fine. And we have last row that will contain another button to do the equal to, and we're gonna put an ID to this one. Okay. Start this a little bit also. And this one should be 100%. So there you go. It's right up there, not where I want it. Cool span. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's fix this one also because this is not correct. Okay, so should have it down there, and we have this also. Our inputs, for some reason, is not 100. Should be 100. So this is your output. It's already 100%. Okay. All right. So Here we go. We have something decent to work with. Okay. All right, so let's dive into the main business, JavaScript. So we need some ways to capture inputs. When a user click any of these buttons, we want to trigger a function, and we want to use this as our visual aid. The input field up there, we want to use it as our visual aid, okay? So now there are a lot of different approaches you can take to solve this. There is no special way that is the correct way. So I'm just going to use objects because I know we treated objects and we have not practiced with this object so far. So let me use objects to solve this particular challenge, and let's see. Okay, so we have a calculator. We have an object that has something to grab the keystrokes. So if a key is pressed, we want to trigger, want to key in number. So can call it number key press. We want to trigger a function that passes the number that was pressed, and if an operator key pressed, we want to know the operator that was pressed and passing that. And we also want to know when clear is pressed, we want to perform an action. When a clear is pressed, we also want to perform an action when a back button pressed. We also want to perform an action. This is this one, the back button. These are our operators. These are the number buttons, including the 0. These are the clear button. This is our back button. Now this is our equal to. Equal to is more like to get the result, right? So we also want equal to button pressed. We also want to trigger a function. All right, so to start with, it's always good when you write a little piece of code, you test what you've written to make sure that it is working. So you don't write a bunch of code and you test it and it's not working, then it's very hard to debug. So let's start with the number keys here. When they press the number, we want to start with just consoling the number that is pressed, okay? So this is the number that is pressed. So now we need to, of course, tell our button how to connect to this number pressed, okay? So we go to our HTML, we start with 1. We know that we already know the onClick event, and we want it to trigger. Now, in this case, remember the one we treated is we just pass in the function, okay? But since we are using an object, so we are going to access this number key pressed via the object name. So we start with the object name, which is calculator dot number key pressed. You trigger the function, remember, with the parentheses. Then we pass in the number that is being pressed, which is 1 in this instance. We are pressing 1. So if we run this code just to test if this is working, you see here, number pressed is 1. So if we press it again, it will trigger the same function. See? So that is working. So we know that this works. So we are going to copy all this and replicate the same into other buttons. And I missed the last quote there. And this one will be 2. This one will be 3. This one will be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and our 0 is also a number. So pass this 0. All right. So if we run this now, you see, when you press 1, press 2, press 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 8, 7, 0. See, everything responds. These ones are not responding. We've not connected it yet. Okay. So, do you have any question from what I've done so far?
No.
All right. So now we are receiving our number presses in our JavaScript. So, which means we are good to go on this one. Now we need to capture the operator. It's more or less the same thing we did here. Okay. So we're going to put in operator here, and we'll go to our JavaScript once more and put in the onClick event on our operators. Okay. So we copy this because it's the same and put it in our plus. And this time it is operator function we want to call. And remember, your plus is not a number, so you're going to put it in a single quote and pass in the plus there. Okay? Because if you pass it in directly like we passed the numbers, you're going to have issues. It's going to trigger an error. So your plus is, you need to pass it as a string. So you use the single quote because we have double quote outside here. So you need to use single quote in here to pass in string. Okay, so we repeat the same thing for the rest of the operators. In this case, this one is minus. Multiplication. And here we have divide. Okay, so let's try that out. I will press plus. Operator press is not a function, so maybe I didn't get the correct name. Operator key pressed, okay? So let's change that. Operator key pressed. So we run this code again. and you see divide times minus plus. So that is good. That's correctly wired. So now the next thing is our back button clear and the summation button. Okay. So here, always start with the console to make sure that you are getting there. So console clear, and this is back button, and this one is submit. Okay. So let's plug this into the event listening. This one is the clear. So on click, we want to calculator dot clear pressed, and the submit, when it's clicked, we want to call calculator dot what's the name of the function? Yeah, equal to button pressed. Have it there. Remember to put in your parentheses because you need to trigger the function. And our back button, let's copy this and put it there. And we want to trigger back button pressed. Pass it in there. Back button pressed. So summon that. You see here back button pressed. See here clear pressed, and you see here submit pressed. So all our buttons are actively responding to our commands. Okay. So that is the first step. Make sure that everything is interactive and correctly wired to your JavaScript. So now I can get all those things inside my function. So I can start implementing my functions. Now, remember I taught us 2 ways in which you can do listen to a key presses. This one, we added it to the HTML element directly. You can also use your JavaScript to locate the button and attach the on-key listener there. It will behave the same way, okay? So it's not must you go to the HTML and put in the on-click. You can use your JavaScript to locate the element and attach on-click listener to it. All right. So let's fix our numbers, okay? So let's put in here a property to hold the values that are being pressed, okay? So let's call this output. Output, by default, it should be empty string, okay? And we also need a function that will put in something to this display, okay? So we have button display, maybe add to display, okay? Add to display would be a function, and the value we want to add to the add display, maybe not add to displays, add to output, okay? Add to output. So this, we want to modify this. We will also have display. Display will be a function that displays our output in this form, okay? So to display our output in this form, we are going to do so in order not to, I'll show you what I mean. Let me finish. So documents dot get element by ID output. We want to set the value to our current output. Remember the keyword this. This is referencing this object, this current object, and we are accessing this output variable. So if we do this, it's going to display whatever we have here inside our element, okay? So let's take, for example, yeah, we need to implement our add to output. For now, let's just do a quick one. This dot output plus equals to value. That is what we want to do. We want to add to our output. This is what we do. Remember, this is referencing the calculator object, and we are accessing the property output, and we are concatenating whatever that is there with the new value that is coming in, okay? So display is going to display the value. So every time we change our output, we want to call the display function to change the display, all right? So now, when we click our number, we want to add to output the number that is pressed, all right? So if you see this, add to output is going to call this function, and this function we call this one in terms. All right, so let's test that and see what it does. Remember, always test your code line so that you know when you have issues. We have line 14 here, we didn't put the comma. All right, and this place too is missing a comma. Okay, so let's run that again. Now our terminal is clear of errors. Now if you press 1, you see 1 here. You press 2, you see 2 here. So all the numbers are being added to our output. Okay, this one is not implemented yet. Only the numbers are getting to our output. Now, for every time I press this, that it triggers output, this function is calling get elements, that is getting the output and overriding the value with this, okay? So if you don't want to be doing this, because this is an operation, so if we don't want to be doing this all the time, all right, we can as well set this here. So we will say our output element, then you can call this here. Our output element, this, remember that when this object is created, this will be called only once because it's the default value. And the element reference will never change, okay? We are only changing the input. And that's why this is nice to have here, so that we don't need to be getting the element by ID at every call of display, because we are calling display a lot of times, okay? So this will reduce the overhead. So now, in here, we will now call this dot output element dot value, then set this. This will do exactly the same thing that we have before. All right, no difference. But the difference now is that we are reducing some CPU usage. Some processing power has been reduced. Okay, so it's not going to get element all the time we press a button. All right. So maybe we should style this a little bit more. I like to have a padding on that input and maybe increase the font size a little. So this is our output. We want to add padding of maybe 10 pixels. That would already look good. Maybe we want to start, yeah, the calculator is fine. Let's have the font size increased a little bit to 24 pixel. Let's see how it looks like now. So more like it, right? Okay. So do you have any question at this point? Because there's a lot going on. That's why I want us to take it step by step. Do you have any question?
No, for now.
All right. So the next thing we want to do now is to get our addition to work. All right. So if we click on our operator, we also want to append how to input the operator. Okay. So let's remove the console and we just say this dot add to output. We want to display it to the user. In this case, we want to add space between them. Let me use this. Remember string templates that we learned previously. You can use your string template and pass in the operator there. See this space here. I'm adding space at the beginning and at the end so that it doesn't stay close to the number when it's being displayed, okay? So if we run this code, you see 12 plus, you see that space. And if we press number again, you will see that space between the two. If I didn't put that space, if I just pass in my operator like this is what you will get. You'll get something like this. Okay. So what I'm doing there is just to make my UI look nice. All right. So this times this divided by this plus this, you see, you can do all that, okay? So you see the spaces that I add in the operator is making it look nice here. All right. So when you click on clear, we're not doing anything. So clear, we just want to reset our output. This output, we want to reset it back to blank when someone click on clear. So if we do this divided by this and you say clear, okay, my mistake there. I didn't call our output, okay? So we need to call our display in order for you to see what is happening there. So this dot display has to be called here also to update the display. So if you press 12 and you can clear, you press another, and then you can clear. You can press multiple things and you can clear, okay? Now the back button. When you press the back button, we just want to go back one step, right? Okay. So. Now, we can solve this in different ways also. And when we press our back button, remember we thought we learned something called splice and slice. All right, so this is where that could come in handy here in order to remove the last of the elements. Okay, so since we are using string here as our output is a string, we can do something like this. When you press the back button, we want to set our output to output.slice. Where do we want to start our slice from? We want to start from 0. Where do we want to end? Remember that you don't know the length of your output. So you're going to do this .output.length to grab the length of the output. Okay. Then you minus 2. If I'm correct, this should already do the trick. Or let's test that to see if it's actually doing what we thought it would do. Okay, so it's -1, not 2. So if we do 1, 2, 3, and we want to go back, see, you take out 3, you take out 2, take out 1. It's, see that? Do you have any question here? You understand what's happened here?
Yes.
Cool. So that is how you can implement a back button. Again, there are different ways you can solve this solution. This is just one of them. All right. So the problem I already can foresee here with this, our solution, is that when we do plus and another number and we decide to go back, so we go this way. Now, in our plus, remember that we have a space around them. So when we press this now, it's not going to do anything visually, but it has done something because it removed that space. And we press it again, then the plus will go away. Then our user might be tempted to press another number. Then you have this space here. So those are not the kind of behavior that we truly need, right? So the ideal situation is when you press plus and you press back button and is a plus or any of the operator, it should remove the spaces included, right? So for us to solve that problem, we have to change the way we are appending and adding to our inputs. We can decide to leave it as a string, but then we have to write more code to check if it is an operator and we want to remove all the spaces around it and all. So that will be more code. It will be easier for us to do something like this. We have our output data, which is a list, okay? Now, when you want to add to your output, instead of appending to the output, we add to our output data, okay? So if we do this .output data .push, remember this method, our array method. push the value. We want to push the value that comes in here into this place. Then our output will be the string format of this output data. Do you see how we are using everything we've learned? Okay. So now if we do toString, for example, remember toString will join everything in the list with a comma. All right, that's not what we need, but we will test it out so that you see what I'm saying, okay? So you see how to solve all this problem in real life. So we have line 11 that has issue, unexpected identifier. Okay, that comma again is missing. So these are things that you need to take care that you don't introduce in your code. All right, so if you do this, you see that every time we have multiple, we are having that comma because we are using toString, okay? So we need to use join. And our join can give us the power to choose which operator we need. So we just need the blank space, okay? We can just do the join and it should work perfectly. Okay, passing the empty space there in order for it not to use this comma. And you see there we have the same behavior, but in this case, it is no longer, we now have an output or structured data that we can easily manipulate, okay? So if you press your plus, you still get that space, that nice space between them, okay? And if you press times, you can also see those nice space around them. Okay, so this is fine. But the difference now is that we have a structured data that we can manipulate. You see, we have this list here that is actually keeping our actual data. So when someone click on clear, as before, we set this to blank, of course, and we also need to set our output data. We need to reset it back to empty list. And we call our display again, which will work as normal. So we do this minus this, and we clear is going to take out everything, which is perfect. Now, what we want to look into is the back button again. Now, when you press on back button, we were doing a slice of the list of the output string, okay? So in this case, we don't want to do the output string. Instead, we are going to do our output data and use the nice array method function pop. Remember what pop does. Pop will remove from the end of the array, and it will also modify the array itself, okay? So if we do pop, all we have to do now is do our join again here, and we don't need this complicated slice, okay? So if we do this, now if we add our plus and we decide to go back, you see 6 is gone, 8 is gone, 9 is gone. Then this is the place we try to fix. Then when you press this, you see that the plus is gone, just one press. And if I press it again, you see 2 is gone. So in this case, our space is being taken away with our value as expected, you see? So we don't need to press and no visual elements. So that issue is fixed. Okay. Do you have any question?
I don't have.
All right, so that is one way of fixing that issue. This is very fast and easy and more optimum. Okay, so now there's another issue that maybe you've noticed it in this approach. If you do plus and the user press plus again, you see we have plus plus. And if you keep pressing all the sign, you see that they are all lined up there, which is not what you want in your calculator. We don't want this. So this is also a problem that we need to fix, okay? So we have not implemented equal to because we need to fix all these little issues that we find here, okay? So how do we fix this issue? It's very simple. Since we have a structured data, okay, we always want, after an operator, we want, the next thing we want is a number. After an operator, we want a number to follow. So if you press our operator, where is our operator? See here, we are just adding to output straight. There's no condition. So we need to put a condition here to make sure that only one operator is added before, then a number must be inserted before you can add another operator. Now, there are multiple ways you can do this, all right? So many ways. Now, the quick and simple one is to put something like can add operator. By default, it is false because we don't want our user to start with plus. This is weird. So we want them to press a number first before pressing our operator, okay? So we put this flag here to say can add operator. Whenever this is true, then the user is able to add an operator, okay? So when they press a number, we know that this function is going to be called, right? So we want to set can add operator here to true. So this will tell us that number has been pressed, okay? So it doesn't matter how many times they press the number, we just know that number has been pressed, all right? So now for our operator, we want to check if this can add operator. If it is true, then we want to add operator. We want to add the operator that is pressed, and we want to set can add operator back to false, so that the next time they press it again, it's not able to add anymore. So this is the fastest and simple way that you can prevent that issue. So if we run this, you see that if I start with a plus, it will not, any of the operator, it will not do anything, okay? If we click this one also, it won't do anything because our structured data have no item to pop, right? So there's nothing happening here. Even when we clear, of course, it's just going to clear an empty place. So it's not going to harm our code. But when we press 1, 2, you see now that we press something, then we can press a plus. If we try to press plus again, it's not going to allow us. If we press minus even, or times, or divide, it's not going to allow it because we have set the parameter back to false, okay? So we have to press a number again, then if we press operator again, it's going to allow it. If we press other operator, it's not going to allow until we press a number. Then we can press an operator. Press a number, then you can press operator. Press a number, then you can press operator, you see? So these are the fix to that problem. This is one of the many solutions that you can use to solve this problem. All right. The other solution is to check your output data, check the last added value to say, is it part of an operator? If it's part of operator, don't allow another entrance, okay? But this one will require us to do a loop on the rest. So this is not a very nice solution. So this one is quick and is going to make our application fast, okay? No loop here, just setting a flag. Okay, so that is that. So now we need to figure out when a user presses this submit to give it to provide the calculation of this result. All right. All right, so let's implement that. So when you press equal to, we want to evaluate this expression in JavaScript. Remember that this is a valid JavaScript code, okay? This is a valid JavaScript code. So there is a function in JavaScript that is called eval. Eval helps us to execute a JavaScript that is in a string, okay? So because of our output is a string, we can easily just pass it to eval, and eval will evaluate the value and return the result to us, okay? So we can just do something like this. Output equals to evaluate our output. All right, don't forget to call the display. And whenever we evaluate the output like this, we also want to change our structured data, our output data. We want to set it to the result, which is the output at this point, because that is what that will be in our display, okay? You can also do something like this. Just if you want to follow the same convention, all right, we do the evaluation here. We do the evaluation in this place, okay? Then we join here. But join here if you want to follow the same step that we did, but any one of these will work. So take note of this. This eval is a new function that I have not mentioned to you guys. So eval will help you to evaluate JavaScript expression in a string and pass you the output. All right, so let's test that out. So we do 1 + 1, and we call our equal to, and you see the result there is 2. Now, the reason why I assigned this to our output data and join it is because a user can decide to continue the calculation from the result. So if I do plus, you see that my 2 is there and plus is added again. Let's say +6, okay? Then we do equal to, you see is 8. Then we can decide to do divide by maybe 2. And we do equal to, you see is 4. All right, times 8. All right, so this is how normal simple calculator behaves, okay? And that is why we need to assign that value back to our structured data in order to allow this usage. Yeah, there's another problem I can foresee here. Yes, when you press a plus, it does not allow anything. But now when you press equal to, see what happens. Equal to doesn't do anything but in our code, it's throwing an exception. because this is not a valid JavaScript code. You can just do 32 plus without putting the next number. So in that case, we are going to protect our equal to button with the same can add operator. So if this dot can add operator before we can allow equal to be pressed. All right. So in this case, when you press this, can add operator is true at this point, okay? So when we press operator, your can add operator has become false. So thereby, if you press equal to, it will not do anything. So in other words, you will not see error or our code crashing. It won't trigger anything until you add the next number. Then when you press equal to, then you see your results. All right. Do you have any question?
Yeah, my question is back to the restriction we placed on the operators. What if you want to do like calculate a negative value, which would require you to add a minus something initially?
Yes, that is also a valid question and reason, because we don't allow you to start with minus, right? Yeah. So now in that case, we can allow minus, because minus is also a valid JavaScript code, right? So we can as well tell our operator that you can allow a number starting with minus, but not times or plus or divide. Okay, we can also do that. All right, so let's just quickly solve that problem. Okay, so we have here our operator. Where is it? Our operator key press. We can add another parameter here to say is minus. Okay, and we can come here and say, and if this can add operator, before you do this, okay, but we can say or is minus. So if this is true or this is true, you can enter here, okay? So now we have to go to our minus here, and we have to pass that parameter here, say true. So because this is minus, we want to say is minus is true, okay? So if you run this code, you will see that you can start with minus, but you can't press plus. Now, there's another problem there. Do you see that? We introduced another problem. But anyway, let's just test this out to see that it works. Plus 6. You see? Minus 6. This works perfectly. But now our problem is we have multiple minuses. Okay, we don't want that. Okay, so let's fix that one. So now we know that when you press minus, it appends to the last of the list. We don't want to do that because it's going to take a lot, it's going to take some CPU power for us to look through. Although this is a very small list, so it's going to be fast anyways. But in case you are working on a large item, it will not be advisable. So we can add another flag to say has added minus. Then start with false. All right. So when we do this, we want to check if is minus set our has added minus to true. Okay, so this is the bridge. If it's minus, set this that it is true. Okay, and we also want to join this condition. Remember, this parenthesis is for grouping, and we can say if is minus and not this dot has added minus. Okay, add, then it comes here and check if it's minus, set it to true that it has added so that it doesn't come back here on us. Okay, so now let's test this. It's not done yet, but I just want to see this. So you see here, I can't add any more minus after pressing once, so which is fine. But now when we press another number and try to, okay, that works actually smooth. I didn't expect it to work. Let me see. Our number is setting can add operator, of course, so it's making this true again, which means it's not using this case anymore. So yes, it's actually is okay. This is fine already. So let's clear and try to add minus at the beginning. So yeah, this is the problem I foresee. So you see here, when we clear, we can't add minus at a certain time unless we press numbers. Do you see that? That was the problem I was trying to solve. Okay. Where is it? When you press a number, when we set can add operator to true, we want to set this one also to false. All right. So this will solve that problem of when we press a number and press this, so we can also start it again, and you can clear again and it still works. All right. So if you want to do a negative number plus a negative number, just do minus, because plus times minus is minus. Okay, so just do 6 minus 6, and this will give you minus 12, which minus 6 plus minus 6 will give you. So we don't need to solve that problem here. I mean, if it's a problem, we can solve it, but it's not necessary. Mathematical sense, that is a repetition of yourself. So you don't need it. So if you want to plus a positive number, which is going to be reactive, so it's fine. This is good. This works fine. So we don't need the other one. Okay, so this is our calculator, all looking nicely. Now, that is another problem.
Okay.
You see this problem that we just introduced now. So in this case, after you add and you click equal to, and the user wants to start another calculation, all right? Then he started adding to it, which is not what the user would expect, okay? Okay, so for us to fix this, we can add has summed or has submitted, whichever you want to call it, false, okay? So when the submit is pressed, equal to pressed, if can add operator, calculate and display, and we want to set has submitted, we want to set it to true, okay? You also want to set this to false whenever a not the back button. In fact, when we press a back button and has submitted, if has submitted, we don't want to actually do this pop. What we want to do is reset. We want to reset because we don't want to remove one of the results, okay? We just want to reset everything. So our output data back to this, and we want to also, yeah, this one will be an else, okay? Else, just do the pop, and this one remain the same, okay? Another one is when we press a clear, when we clear everything, we also want to set this dot has submitted to make sure it's false, okay? And also you want to set here has added a minus also to false when you clear, okay? The next one, what else? When you press an operator and has submitted, we still want it to behave the same way, okay? But if you press a number, we want to set has submitted to false. And before we set it to false, before we set this to false, we also want to actually trigger clear. We want to clear the screen and start from beginning, okay? So we said can add operator true, has all this true, and if has submitted is true, we want to, when a number is pressed, we want to check if has submitted is true. If that is the case, we want to trigger the clear function. So this clear will reset everything, okay? And before calling the output. So we don't need to call this one here to set it to false, since our clear is already setting it to false, okay? So that, you can also remove this one even if you want this, because you're clear. Okay, you need to leave this one because this is not triggered all the time. All right. So if we run this now, if we do a calculation and we try to press another number, you see that it starts from beginning again, which is what we expected, okay? But if you start from here and press plus, it's just going to continue. And there is another problem, okay? So when we press our plus, we want to check if is submitted is true. We don't even actually need to check, right? We just need to set it to false anyways. Is submitted, has submitted, we set it to false from the beginning of the operator click. So let's see that. You see, it's fine here. We'll start again with plus and 3, and you see everything works fine. Perfect. This is the behavior we need, okay? But when you press a number, it clears off the results and starts from beginning. All right, so this is your complete functional simple calculator.